Spencer is to assume the role of president at the quote-unquote embattled Caribbean Maritime University. He has now done so. He replaces Professor Emeritus Evan Degan, who stepped in after the university became mired in controversy and scandal over reports of financial irregularity. Former President Professor Fritz Pinnock resigned on February 18 and is now facing criminal charges along with former Education Minister Roel Reid. A 2020 special audit report by the Auditor General found, among other things, that the ministries in charge had not provided adequate oversight, neither did the university's council or management, and that the then president made decisions that undermined his fiduciary responsibility to CMU, and that the management breached the university's HR policy. And there was another report that raised concerns as to how the registry had been operating. For instance, that was by Deputy Registrar of UWI, Jonathan Archie, which said, among other things, students were participating in graduation who hadn't actually graduated. Postgraduate grades were not being recorded. Students were not doing the dissertation part of their postgraduate degrees because they weren't assigned supervisors. So lots has been happening over the past few years. We're joined by Professor Spencer. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. We appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, Dionne. Thanks for having me.
Boy, sound like you have a tall task ahead of you, man. The CMU. The CMU, I mean, this is an organization that, we had been reporting on, exposed to over the years, and it was one that was really, really impressive in terms of what it was doing for students and a lot of Jamaicans who were trying to get into the maritime industry. But over the past few years, the reputation has taken a hit, correct?
What you said a while ago is quite true in terms of the fact that the institution has been an amazing value and asset to the nation and to many people. And what I've found since being there is that a lot of that talent still exists, a lot of that excellence still exists, and I think that's really where I want to throw all of my efforts going forward. You said, it's a Herculean task. I'm not unaccustomed to tall tasks, and I think certainly the team that we have out there is capable of restoring the brand to more than former glory. I think even in former days, it was just scratching the surface. So there's a lot we want to do.
Well, walk us through. Where are you going to start?
Right. So, one of the things I've been saying is if we have an institution that is responsible for developing the human capital for all of our ports, there has to be something fundamentally important about that institution. So you're talking about access, you're talking about trade, you're talking about not just your seaports, but your airports. You're talking about the harder side of logistics and port management and engineering, but you're also talking about the softer side of cruise shipping and hospitality. And what I have discovered having gone there is that it's like it's the best kept secret. When I start telling people about the programs that we have and the kinds of technology that are available at the CMU in mechatronics, I never heard of mechatronics until I went there, which is a combination of mechanical engineering and electrical engineering to produce cutting-edge, solutions. And we have the only such laboratory in the entire Caribbean, the largest and the most cutting-edge. And I think we've undersold some of this, and so one of the things I want to do is shed some light on the positive elements and the potential that is there. The other thing I want us to look at is how we internationalize, and I've been talking to the team about internationalizing our product, and the way to do that is not to sort of, we're using international best practice, but we're not going to engage in a process of accepting the hegemony. We're going to do what I call an anti-global hegemony kind of internationalization, where we're selling what we have.
You need to say all of that for me in English.
Yes, I'm going to say it in English. So basically what we're saying is that we have a secret sauce at the CMU. People speak highly of our graduates. I want to focus on the things that people speak highly of. When we talk about our engineers going to even a JPS, the reviews we get far supersede many other tertiary institutions, and I'm proud to talk about that, and I'm proud to look at our model of education and how we can brand that and sell that to the world. We're signing a couple memoranda of understanding with some international entities, a number of universities. Today we had Dalhousie University with us working through the finer details of what's going to be a powerful MOU, which will see staff exchanges, student exchanges, staff development. We'll be looking at joint programs and the potential for research and consultancy together. So, I mean, this is just a little bit of what we've been able to do in the 2 weeks that I've rallied the troops, and I think we're going to have some glory days ahead. I must be honest with you. That what I've seen, given my own experience, I've worked...
Well, let me ask you about that,
yes.
your experience,
yes.
because I was looking at your resume, and I mean, it's a stellar resume. You have a PhD in tourism strategy from Bournemouth in the UK, Masters in Tourism and Hospitality Management from UWI. You've published extensively, your bio says, in the field of tourism. 3 refereed books, numerous articles, book chapters, consulting extensively with Caribbean countries on issues related to tourism development. This sounds like a new area, though. Is it really up your alley?
It's absolutely up my alley. If you think about the kind of ecosystem that we need to look at. So one of the things I've said is, you know, the maritime industry has many components. One very important part of it is the ability to look at the softer side of it, right? Now, cruise shipping is just one part of that. There are other elements that connect. What I am is a change leader. What I am is an individual who goes into a space, understands it. I'm a strategic leader. And so I'm tapping into the strength of our nautical leaders and our maritime leaders for that side of it. We're using the network of multiple entities such as the Maritime Authority of Jamaica. The council is a stellar council with representation from the MAJ, the PAJ. We're looking at individuals who are CEOs of private sector shipping companies and that kind of interface. Now, I've had my own experience doing consultancy in the field. So the idea that I would be a misfit is quite incorrect, actually. It's right up my street, and it makes me excited to wake up every morning and go to work.
Okay. Now, I know some colleges and universities saw a downturn in enrollment during the COVID, the past 2 years with COVID and all the restrictions. Did CMU have an issue there?
Yeah, we did see a little bit of fall off, as you would expect. The challenge for us is that the core of what we offer requires a certain degree of immersion. So we have cadets who are involved in, you know, the seafarers that we're training and other individuals. There's a certain extent to which there's a practical and practicum component, which would have been stymied, and we would have had to sort of pivot and look at how we can creatively deliver those programs. So we would have seen a fall off. And again, there were financial challenges for many in this time, so we have not been insulated from those challenges. However, what we've discovered is that we've seen an uptick in numbers and in our projections from what we'd have expected.
Give me some numbers. Give me some numbers. When you say a little bit of fall off, for instance, what do you mean, and what kind of uptick?
Right. So we in the COVID period, we'd seen we're edging closer to 3,500 in terms of students. In COVID, we fell a little below that 3,000 mark, and we're starting to see the numbers go back in the right direction towards that sort of ballpark of going over the 3,000. So that's what we're looking at this point, and we expect that certainly with our efforts and showcasing a lot of what exists, that we will see in the next year. There'll be a little bit of a lag, but we expect 2023, 2024 to be the real rebound year in terms of student numbers. We're focusing our efforts, though, on ensuring that we strengthen the product, because, you know, marketing is one element of it, right? I've always said, and I made this point when I was in another space, that if you don't have a strong product, then marketing is really just a band-aid. So we really want to right the ship, pun intended, and as we do that, we are going to have a product that will sell itself, because already there's still a certain repute in the international space. We've taken, as you've indicated, a few blows, but in the international space, there's still a very solid reputation for the CMU, and to my mind, it can only go up from here.
All right, I'm just about out of time, but I noticed you spoke of rallying the troops. Sounds like you had a morale problem you have to deal with.
Well, I wouldn't say we had a severe moral problem. What I think we had, and in all honesty, was that individuals who loved the place they work for, the place that had become home, the place where they're spending more hours than they are spending at home, and would have felt a sense of ownership, saw a bit of the perception changing, and that meant the world to them. And so they internalized that. And so all we're doing is harnessing now that passion and that energy to drive the kind of positivity that we want to see, and to ensure that people are rightly placed within the institution, and that they're contributing in the best way, and that we are supporting them with the resources to be able to execute their functions. Because Jamaica would lose big, the Caribbean would lose big, and I think the world would lose big if the CMU were to cease to have the presence that it has, and also if it were not to take its rightful place at the epicenter of tertiary education.
All right, have to leave it there, but sounds like interesting stuff. Looking forward to talking to you again, Professor. Thanks so much for the time.
Yes, a pleasure. Looking forward to speaking again.
All right, President of the Caribbean Maritime University, Professor Andrew Spencer. Stay tuned.